All right. Welcome to the Friday episode of the Elevating IT podcast and weekly sales wrap here live on Facebook and on YouTube. Hopefully you're watching live. If you're not watching, if you're watching on the recording, welcome. And my name is Mike Brooks. I am here with my good friend, Frank M.D. Benedetto. I always forget the M, but you put it in, so I should say it, right?
You should. One time I remember I was spelling my name, and the lady I was talking to said, I said M, and she goes, M is in Mary. I said, no, M is in Michael.
Is that your middle name? Is my first name?
It is. My middle name is your first name.
That's awesome. So for me, it's first. For you, it's second.
If we were in second grade, that would have been like a big deal right now.
Right, it would be.
There'd be like a little jingle about it, but since we're in
the third grade.
Yeah. Yes, Frank Michael.
Yeah.
My first name's not Francis. It's not Franklin. It's just plain old Frank,
Just plain old Frank. Well, today we're going to talk about you. Today we're going to talk about Frank Michael.
Here we go.
I don't know if I told you this, but I sent an email out promoting that we're going to talk about how you scaled your business. So we're talking all about you. And I sent it out with a subject line was wow. Do you know why I did that? Because I'm impressed. I'm always impressed. Me and you have known each other for a long time. And
you want to see something? This was a friend of mine who used to teach preschool. She used to do this with the kids. You go, wow, you like this? You go, right?
You hold up three fingers on both sides. Yeah. Oh, yeah, okay. Here's your head. My head is rounder than yours.
It didn't really look right when I was trying to do it. Anyway,
it looked right when I did it because my head is round.
You look like Richard Nixon.
That's funny. Yeah. Wow. And I said that because, it is impressive. I always we get caught up in what we do. But sometimes I write a lot of content. I do a lot of the training, and I use, we use Two River Tech, your MSP, as an example, because it is a great example of you were the first audit user. You ran and I'll give a little history because I think a lot of people know. You run and ran an MSP called Two River Technology Group in New Jersey. And you one day decided you needed a better way to sell. And that's where audit was kind of born and came from. And that's part of your story. But what's interesting, and I think what would be interesting to people listening, is how you managed to do that, because it's hard enough to run one business. Most people are probably going to be nodding with me going, yeah, it's how do you run one business successfully? You're running two successful businesses. I've tried to do it before, and it was not a great road for me. I couldn't run one. I had to get rid of one to be able to run the other. I just couldn't do it. It's not, I had a hard enough time doing one. So, I wanted to share that, have you kind of share that story. And for people watching, please ask questions, pop them in the comments, whether you're watching on YouTube or on Facebook. And we'll answer, Frank will answer your questions. We'll answer your questions about how he's doing that. You are full-time in your MSP, right? Day to day, you're out there selling and you're out there doing it, and you're fairly busy in audit as well.
Right.
So let's start with this. Why on earth would anybody want to run two businesses?
So I don't know that I woke up one day and said, hey, I want to have two businesses. I really think like where you touched on first was that I was in search of a better tool or a way to sell. Right. And, for me, when you talk about scaling in the business, there's a bunch of different aspects, but where I was at in the business was how can I make my life easier, and how could I sell more without a ton more extra effort? And so I'm always looking at ways to improve that. And when it came down to the pure selling, I was finding it was getting more and more challenging, just simply because of all the different products that were continuing to flood the MSP space. Like right now, I think it's fair to say that every day we see a new cybersecurity type of tool that's really important. But you need to be able to sell this to the prospects or to clients. And it was getting more and more complicated. And I found that there's a huge disconnect in what the prospect or client really understood. And so it was challenging to get them to see the value in the solution. And I think that I had been educated by 25 different people or entities in the industry. And what I was doing was like a combination of all of those. And I don't know that I could say it was working perfectly. So when I sought a better way to sell, that was where the basis of audit came from. So I started to use it for myself, just sort of as a proof of concept. I never really had any initially any desire to turn it into a business or try to monetize that. But one thing that struck me was that when I would go into a prospect's office, and we talked about this, my best prospects are some other MSP's client, right? Because they're already spending and writing that check every month. So it's a good prospect for me. Typically, I'm getting my foot in there, foot in the door if there is a problem that the prospect seems to have, right? They wouldn't be interviewing me or asking me to come in if they're happy with their current MSP. But when I would go in there, I would be disappointed at what I would find. And it dawned on me that it can't possibly be that all the MSPs around me were just bad, right? They didn't know what they were doing technically. It couldn't possibly be that there were no good products and services to sell to them, right? So what I really boiled it down to was the reason why I was finding prospect after prospect in disarray was because MSPs have a tough time selling, right? They're usually technical. So they were having the exact same problem I was having. And what I realized is, hey, Two River Technology Group and myself are never going to help every small business out there, whether it's in New Jersey or, as we scale out. So who is the big loser in this were those SMBs, those small businesses that need our products and services. They're the real losers in this because they've not been empowered to make a good buying decision, right? So my thought was, if I was to take the system that I created that worked really well for me, and I got other MSPs to use it, right? I'll audit, then who's the real beneficiary here are the small businesses that would then be able to say, oh, now I understand what your solution is about. Yes, we will buy, right? And then what we would find is more and more businesses would have the proper products and services. They'd be more well protected. There'd be less, ransomware and, data breaches, et cetera. So that was really how this thing all kind of came about. And so before we knew it, we had all these MSPs that were asking to use it. And then they started to, and then we started to get all the amazing feedback and testimonials, right? Which was what further, I think, fueled us, right? Because it was exciting. I knew what my results were, but it's exciting to hear about it from other MSPs. And then it grew. And I mean, honestly, they talk about people, product, and process. It's the people around you that allow you to build and scale that, right? So if I didn't have the right people on both sides at Two River Technology Group and at Audit, I don't think I'd be successful in either of those businesses. So it really is important to surround yourself with other people who can deliver results and get the job done.
Well, talk about Two River Tech as far as your structure. How many people do you have? Who does what? How are you structured? How does Two River Tech work?
Yeah, it's a good question. So there's actually 9 of us right now. I run the business. I also head up sales, and I do what's considered owner-led selling. Tried to build out a sales engine. Haven't been quite as successful, so I continue to do it myself. We have an inside sales person who helps with account management. And then the rest of the team, the other 7, are essentially dedicated towards support. And my big belief is that it's all about the customer service side of it, right? So really focus on the customer service and the delivery of those services. We do split it up into proactive, services, and so those are things like where we schedule things, and then reactive, right? That's more of the support, and we probably we handle at any given time, we have like 30 tickets on our reactive board. I know companies that are about our size sometimes, having hundreds. Some of my peers, have a lot more tickets than we do. So it really was about product selection, a lot about moving to the cloud, partnering with the right cloud company where they're doing a lot of the heavy lifting. So those people aren't on my payroll, but those are more like the level 3 type techs that are on the cloud vendor side. So it's allowed us to stay more focused on the customer service delivery side as opposed to that back office engineering type of scenario. So it's a good breakdown for us, allows us to be very leveraged. And, so far, it's what served Two River Tech well.
Can you dig into a little bit more on why you're experiencing less support tickets than your peers? I mean, you said it's a lot of it's product selection. I think people would probably be interested to know what your stack looks like, what things you're doing that are allowing you, because that has to do with scaling, right? Like if you're dealing with double, triple the problems, you have more resources that you have to assign to that. So
Right.
Talk a little bit about that.
So in 2012, we were operating as a traditional managed services provider, a lot of on-prem solutions, servers at the time. We made a lot of money installing small business servers, Microsoft product that it's no longer in existence, but that was pretty much the core of our stack. I had started looking right around that time at cloud solutions because I knew that's where the industry was going. Gretzky said what made him great was he went where the puck was going, right? So, I always try to stay ahead of the curve. And I said that everything's going to go to the cloud. So I don't want to be the last guy trying to sell an on-prem server. And as I was in the process of partnering with a company after having vetted several, Hurricane Sandy hit and in our area, and it delivered a really painful lesson in business continuity. And so we had a lot of clients that were like, hey, we need to be on the cloud like yesterday. So we spent the next 3 years primarily migrating our existing clients and only selling that solution to new clients, because I said I never want to be in a situation where we're dealing with a lack of business continuity. Fast forward to today, this pandemic again is another example of a business continuity event. Our clients are well prepared, but something sort of magical happened along the way is that our ticket count kept going down, down, down. And the ones that we had the most tickets were on the clients that we hadn't yet moved over to the cloud platform. So, I learned from Gary Pica years ago about alignment of your solution stack. You want to figure out what your stack should look like, and then you want to try to get all of your clients using that, because when you do that, now your support technicians don't have to be experts in 1,000 different things. They could be, instead of being generalists, they can be experts in just a smaller number. So, like as an example, we're a Sonic Wall shop. We have been for 12 plus years, maybe longer, maybe 15 years. So that's what we sell. That's what we service. That's what we monitor and support. If you come on board with Two River, you're getting a Sonic Wall. I don't care if you bought another firewall yesterday. And I tell the client straight up, I say, you don't want us learning how to, support this firewall that we don't know, we're not experts in on your time. You know what I mean? It's too risky. Plus too problematic for us, right? The whole machine grinds to a halt when someone's like, hey, how do we manage this WatchGuard firewall? And everyone's got to figure stuff out. Whereas Sonic Wall, we've got the people who know that. We can keep going. And you take that mentality and you apply that to, other areas or other of your stack. And it just makes it a whole lot easier to support. It makes you more highly leveraged. You don't need as many people. Ticket counts go down. And then, we just put together a spreadsheet, honestly, in the beginning. It was really all the clients are, on the left-hand column. Across the top are all the different items in our solution stack. And we started using the same red, yellow, green with, as audit. And if they had it, it was green. If they didn't, it was red. And sometimes it'd be yellow, like maybe it wasn't a fit or they didn't really need. So like I had like a kind of my own little system. And the goal was always to get as much green as we could. So when we would do business reviews, I would be able to quickly spot check and say, oh, they're not using these, products or services that we think they should. And that would go into the audit. So really alignment was super important in order to be able to achieve that kind of leverage.
Interesting. Other things that you see that your peers, maybe their peers who are struggling to kind of get to where you are, what things do you see that MSPs need to worry about, or maybe mistakes they make, or things that are standing in their way?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it starts with product, right? You have to figure out what it is that you are going to want to sell, right? You've got to put your stack together. I think that's pretty easy. I don't know that other MSPs make mistakes because I think there's so many good programs out there that you can educate yourself and follow, including the vendors. I mean, the vendors really do sponsor a lot of educational content these days. So, you can kind of figure out what you think you want. I think the next part of it for us was people. So as we started to scale, I had to hire people, and then it exposed the other problem that I didn't realize that we had, and that was process. Right, when you hire a bunch of people, everyone's trying to learn how to do their job, and if you don't have everything documented, all your processes documented, then it becomes, hey, ask Joe, hey, ask Mike, and over. And then you suddenly realize, what if Joe or Mike wasn't here? Right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where, we really got serious. And it started last year. And then during COVID, things kind of slowed down, like the whole world slowed down. So it really allowed us to write a lot of SOPs. So, yeah, we've probably written over 150 SOPs this year alone. Some of them were already there, and some had to be revised, and some we created. But now everything that we do, every new product that we bring on, we write an SOP for it, and many times we do a client-facing SOP because instead of having to tell a client as a technician, typing up what to do, it's far easier to copy a link and paste it and say, here, follow this. So, like I said, it really started with product. People, you need to hire the right people, but you better make sure you have the processes documented, or hiring those people, people won't succeed, or you just get overwhelmed with all the people that you've hired because they need to be trained and taught. So they're all interrelated.
Well, you did a phenomenal job of finding the right people at audIT. I know that for a fact.
It's true, Mike. You are a fantastic member of audIT. We love having you here.
I have to go looking for it. Anyway, so you hit some bumps along the way, and I've seen you. I don't want to reveal anything. I don't want to talk about, because I know a lot of personal stuff. So I don't want to say something that I'm not supposed to say here. But you've probably been through more things and overcome more obstacles than I think a lot of other business owners and peers that I know have. Like, I know everybody has their problems, but I've seen you overcome some pretty big ones. So I don't know, I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you want to share kind of some of those speed bumps you have encountered and how you overcame them.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've always said the bad things happen despite your best laid plans, right? I mean, you plan and God laughs, as some people will say. But I've learned that those things are going to happen no matter what, and so you've got to be able to just kind of roll with the punches there. The good things, I think, only happen because you go after them. So working really hard towards goals, to achieve those, that's only going to happen if you make it happen, right? So that's kind of my mentality. I always say, hey, I can't control some of the stuff or the bad things, but if it gets there, I'll deal with it. And but I'm going to keep chasing after the positive, because you never just wake up one day and suddenly, like, there's success, right? It's not like playing the lottery and you just get lucky. So I think with that said, I mean, everybody's got something. We've all had things, and it's typically, you got things that happen in your personal life, and then you have things that happen in business. And again, it happens. I can tell you that things that have happened in my personal life, that have required me to pull back from the business at various times, having the right people has allowed me to be able to do that. So again, in that case, it comes down to people, because they were able and empowered to be able to keep running the business, right? So you never want to have a business that's structured such that if you're not there, or you're not there, 8 hours a day or more, that the thing grinds to a halt, right? So you want to make sure that they know what they're doing, they're empowered to do it, that they're excited and motivated, just as much as I am. So there's that. And then, on the business side of things, hey, lost a big client that we shared space with. And, that was a real pain, right? This was years ago, but what happens when the client who has, office space that you're renting from decides they don't want to be your client anymore. I mean, they were kind of nice about, hey, you can kind of keep your space here, but that was awkward. So, it's just part of life. You just got to keep going forward. And again, it always seems like, a door closes and a window opens, and we got space somewhere else, and that space is in this big building, and we've gotten tons of business because we're in that building. And, at the time, short-sighted, I was kind of, woe is me, this sucks. But, when I look back on it, I'm like, wow, this is one of the best things that could have happened. So sometimes these things are disguised, and you just have to, you have to not, I think, take yourself too seriously day to day. You just keep plowing forward. So I don't know. I read a lot of books to try to stay motivated. Um, and I think, I've always been a big believer, you do the right things long enough, consistently, and good things happen to you. But yeah, there will be some potholes and some speed bumps along the way.
Yeah, and I know if having been chatting with you about these things along the way, I thought, man, this could really take the business apart. And you were always even keel about it. You were always like, hey, this happened. It is what it is. I'm gonna, and I think that's part of the reason why you're able to steer around things, because you don't get bogged down in being worried about stuff. You just never have. But also you have real good financial discipline too. I've seen you do it directly with audit, how you ran audit you're really the CFO of audit, as well as the
Yeah.
founder, as well as the visionary. We all wear a lot of hats, but you're running the financial, and I saw how you did it right from the get go, and it was impressive. And I'm sure you do the same thing with Two River Tech. That makes a big difference, because when you lose a client, your biggest client, and you're potentially going to lose your space, your office space. You have to find new office space. You need the money to be able to do that. You can't just pull out the credit card or go get a loan, which I don't think you did. You were able to do that, and a lot of that is because you were financially smart along the way. I don't know if you want to share a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll address you talk about the reaction, and I always feel like, hey, that's what I get paid for. I get paid to lead the business. And if my staff sees me like running from a fire or something, they're going to start running and freak out, right? So there's times where inside maybe I'm a little bit more you know emotional than what I show on the outside, but I know that I'm being paid to lead. So I try to always think about that. And if I could take as much emotion out of these decisions, even better, because it helps you think more clearly and make the right decisions. So I think that's kind of where it starts from. What was the second part? I forgot the
Just
second question.
how you approach things, and not
Oh,
necessarily
financially.
the behind the scenes of finances, but how
Yeah,
you
yeah,
approach finances, because that's a
right.
killer, man. If you don't run a good if you don't manage your finances internally,
Yeah,
it can be money in and money out. We know, and people, I know people who probably make a lot of money, but they spend as much as they make, if not more, and they're always chasing that next client, because they're always trying to, no matter how well they do, they can never achieve success because the profitability is not there.
yep.
And that's not a problem you have had.
I mean, we're at a good point right now in our business, but I had to grow to get there. And I think that because as the business owner, I really looked at the two most important things that I thought, like the jobs that I could be doing in the business, was selling and watching the numbers, right? And I'll say accounting, but it's really more like bookkeeping. It's not that complicated. And so I spend a lot of time in both of those roles. So I'm able to see like the beginning, and I'm able to see the end, like what's the end result here, the dollars in the bank account, and what's the start, which is sitting with the prospect, trying to get them to say yes. So I think those are two good areas that have served me well. And it's allowed me to, I'm fairly conservative. I may have been able to grow faster if I took more risk, but I don't know, right? Because this is the way I decided to do it. I can tell you with audit, we made that decision right out. I did right out of the gate after having read Michael Michalowicz's book Profit First, which I thought was just brilliantly simple. And I can remember sitting at the bank, setting up all the different bank accounts, and the lady looking at me like we're nuts. But obviously there was a reason, and ultimately it takes a lot of the emotion out of the decision making, right? So we can't pay 125% out right to partners, or you can't all get 130% of a dollar, right? So it allowed us all to make better decisions. It also allowed us to see what did we have left for expenses, right? So the whole, just for the people who don't understand or haven't read the book, it's basically your what was it? Revenue minus profit equals expenses, right?
Right.
Most gap is revenue minus expenses equals profit. So you end up, like you just said, you spend all your money and there is no profit. You don't pay yourself anything. So here, the revenue comes in, and then we paid the partners, or the people, our expenses, or, first, right? And then what's left was our expenses. So if you said to me, "Hey, can we afford to sponsor, be the bronze sponsor at a trade show?" We would look and see what we could afford, and we make a decision that way. So we never got ourselves into crazy debt or ran afoul of anything, and that's allowed us to stay really fiscally healthy. I think we've then been able to make some really good decisions as we've grown, because it's the same formula that we apply. And that book has been phenomenal. So I was actually doing a form of that in Two River Tech, not quite as disciplined as the book said and what we did with audit, but I realized I kind of was doing that already, and I think that's what's helped me, kind of stay on track and make good financial decisions.
Cool. Final question for you is because an important part of scaling is your business review process
Right.
and making sure that I talk to a lot of MSPs because of audit, and I know some MSPs are not as profitable as others, and I know that you're a very profitable MSP, and it's because you're always doing things that you should be doing, and especially when it comes to getting your clients to use the products that they need to be using. You're not
Right.
afraid to add things to your stack and get folks paying for it. So I wanted to kind of end on that, on the business review process and how that's played into how you've
Yeah.
grown.
At the end of the day, I think it's all about um, figuring out a way as an MSP to get your clients to do the things that are good for them, that make it easier for you as the MSP to run your business and deliver support and service, and make a dollar doing it, right? And that's triple win. So if I go to a client and I say, you should buy this thing that helps you, benefits me as your MSP, and I make money doing it, it's awesome. So the business reviews, really, that's what they're about. It's about educating the existing clients. It's about allowing them to make good buying decisions. So that way, if we look back, they feel empowered. They never feel like we never talked about certain things. And it's really just a simple process. You set up your first business review. We talk about this is funny is some MSPs are like, oh, I can't get people to do business reviews, or you don't want to do them because you know how miserable your client looks when you're doing the review, right? So you don't want to do it. So the first thing you need to do is get them to say yes to you and use a different format. We of course use audit, but we sit down. We don't hit them over the head with a Bible full of information. Right? We make it very easy for them to look through. We see we explain exactly maybe where they're deficient, where they're doing well. They'll always ask, hey, what could we do to do better? We'll have a proposal so we can answer the questions, because it always comes down to dollars and cents. And then I think I walk out of every meeting having sold something. And then we just repeat. And before I leave the meeting, we just schedule the next one. And that's pretty simple. It's basic stuff. I go to the dentist every 6 months. If I waited for 6 months and then I had to call the dentist, I'd probably forget. And then I'd be like, oh man, it's been a year. So when I'm there, they say, would you like to make an appointment now? I say, absolutely. You know, I scroll 6 months ahead. I go, wow, it'll be snowing by then. You know what I mean? It's like, usually I'm standing there in flip flops thinking like, wow, it's going to be snowing, it'll be middle of December. And then before I know it, it's middle of December and I'm back at the, right. And so I take the effort and the thought out of it. And that's what we do. We just set them up again and we follow a business review schedule. So for me, it's about the size of the client, right? I'm not going to do a quarterly review with somebody that's only paying us $500 a month, right? Because again, it's about applying our time, in the proper areas. So, and so just as an example, I think we say if it's $1,000 or less, we're going to do an annual review with you. Right? If it's $5,000 or more, we're going to do a quarterly business review. So that way, I'm meeting, more frequently with the accounts that are more profitable. So the 80 or the 20% of the accounts that make me 80% of our money, those are the ones I'm meeting with more. And then the bottom, 80% where I make my 20%, those are the ones that are less frequent. And you just repeat. I mean, it's really not a complicated process. You can do it with people that are regular account managers. You can do it with VCIOs if you go that way. So it doesn't have to be a big formal process. It could be more informal with someone who's just doing account management. Or if you're small, you're the business owner. Go out and go see your clients, and they'll like to hear from you. You pointed out, and sometimes I sort of laugh to myself too. I spend more time just chatting up the client. Hey, how are the kids? How'd that thing work out with the car? Whatever it is. And it's because these are personal relationships, right? Isn't just two businesses doing business with each other with no interaction, right? This is people to people, that own the business. And I think that that's what really helps cement those relationships. If something, doesn't go quite right on the support side, which happens, if you have those good relationships, you're not like worried about losing the client because you know that you've got that personal relationship. So I think that's, for us, that's really, breaking it down as simply as I can.
Awesome. Good stuff. So as folks who are listening to this, we're about to wrap up for today, but if you have questions, follow-up questions after you've watched this, pop them in the comments and we'll come back to this and do this again. I think this was fun to kind of understand how you're doing things. You're successful at what you do. I know you don't like tooting your own horn, so I have to kind of squeeze it out of you. I think it's an important thing, people, other MSPs who are starting up, especially if they're getting started or they're one person operation looking to kind of scale to that next level, look to what you're doing and they can take a lot from that. So really, really important stuff. And let's wrap it up for today. Great show. And thanks for being here, everybody. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Have a good week.